in the first part of my discussion, I was focusing more on what India did and what all actions by India which irritated China. But in this part of my discussion, I would like to look into what are those strategic interests of China, or how China is pursuing right now. What are their intentions? How exactly they are trying to go about. So, one simple explanation or one popular argument is that China's move till now at the line of actual control was driven more by local factors such as India's infrastructure development, or India changing the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, the August 5th, withdrawal of Article 370 and things like that. So, according to some experts, it's a reckless move by China. But it may not be that reckless. And in fact, some have even said that China has lost India strategically to the West forever, or at least for the next 10, 15, 20 years, they have lost it completely. So they have this move, a few square kilometers of land here and there, and that too an uninhabited land, and that too a desert, a cold desert, would not have made much difference, and in the process they lost India completely. That is the argument put forward by many experts. But it is not a reckless move. It is not that easy. It is not that simple. So now let me look into what are those Chinese interests, or rather, what is that? What is the Chinese calculation? So let me put it this way: the the Chinese calculation in these moves, whatever moves they have done right now, what are they thinking? What are they looking forward? First of all, we can very safely conclude that China, there is a clear shift in Chinese foreign policy post COVID-19. So, first point I would like to argue here is there is a clear shift in Chinese foreign policy, especially after the COVID-19, especially after the COVID-19 outbreak. There's a clear shift. In fact, there is no doubt this COVID-19 and the way things have emerged, the way the disease got spread across the world, China, there is a loss of face for China, no doubt. So this second point I would like to add here is there is a loss of face for China. Whatever the carefully built image of Xi Jinping, the carefully built image of Xi Jinping is completely dented. The strong man image which he created is completely dented, and in fact, but what I personally feel is Xi Jinping is trying to use this. According to for him, offense is the best defense. He is trying to defend it through an offensive foreign policy rather than China becoming a bit defensive. They are trying to show an offensive phase of that strong arm tactics of China. That is what they are trying to show to the rest of the world. So for them, I believe they are calculating that offense is the best defense. That is what they are trying to. That is how they are trying to overcome the loss of face after the pandemic, the corona pandemic. That is what we can safely conclude. A third point I would like to add here is, now if you look a bit ideologically, there is a rising tension with US. There is a rising tension in Hong Kong. There is a rising tension in the Taiwan region, and now the LAC tension. So that means they are trying to increase the pressure, or rather their offensive position. The China is taking a more offensive position than a defensive position. So a more offensive position than a defensive position as far as China is concerned. Now, in fact, China is trying to reorient the global order. In fact, China is an ambitious rising power, and it wants to reorient the global order. In fact, even compared to the Soviet Union of 1940s, China has no ideological. China is not an ideological state like Soviet Union. Soviet Union wanted to spread communism. China has no such intention. China wants to show, and either to become the world number one, or rather they want to show that they dictate terms for the rest of the world. Their only concern is their economic superiority. their the Chinese superiority in every aspect of life, and they are not interested in dishing out one or other ideology. They are not interested in spreading this communist ideology or anything. So their focus, they want to reorient. So the fourth point I would like to mention, they want to reorient. They want to reorient the world order, the global order, which should be in favor of China. That is where, so they want to be the next superpower of the world, and they want to show to the world that we are the superpower, we are the emerging superpower, we have arrived. In fact, till now, the Chinese policy, especially in the entire 21st century, the last 20 years, China was always talking about a peaceful. They always talked about the peaceful rise of China. They talked about the peaceful rise of China. That is why they call the Heping Jiweki. Heping Jiweki, the Chinese term for the peaceful rise, the peaceful development. China, they wanted to say that we are a peaceful, but that era is getting over with this kind of an offensive position by China, especially everywhere, with US, with Taiwan, with Hong Kong, with India. China is trying to tell the world that their period of hide your capacity, bide your time and all, that kind of a philosophy, that peaceful rise era is getting over. So the peaceful rise of China, this era is over. So China is announcing to the world that this era is over, and with this global, with the global economy in real, trouble, in tantrums, or rather I will say in doldrums, globalization is in an irrevocable or irrecoverable, crisis. In fact, the globalization is a real trouble right now. Beijing believes that the global order is at a breaking point. Beijing strongly believes that there is a chance, or it is global order is going to be reoriented. There is a chance of reorienting this global order, and China and Beijing would like to take this initiative, take this chance to show to the world that they have arrived as a superpower. They have arrived as a global power at this point of time. So they want to show to the world that they are a dominant power. And according to some experts, especially the Hindu newspaper talked about a very interesting term called salami tactics. Hindu said that it is what is China's salami tactics. So what is the salami tactics? That is where a dominant power attempts to establish its hegemony piece by piece. A dominant power trying to dominate piece by piece, one by one, step by step, piece by piece. So India is one such slice in this salami slice strategy. So India is one such slice in this salami strategy. That is what the Hindu newspaper talked about. It's very interesting. I found it very interesting because China is trying to assert its global power, assert its superiority piece by piece, one by one, step by step, country by country. So in that move, India is one such piece, one such move for China, and that is why they are asserting on this line of actual control, because China's peaceful rise period is over. China is trying to tell the world that they have arrived and please take note of China. That is what they want to say. Another point I would like to say here is China has finally concluded that India is no more a swing state. A seventh point I would like to add here is India, according to China, India is no more a swing state, meaning India, there is no doubt regarding China, doubt regarding India, where India will stand. So India is already an ally in progress with US, and it's an ally of US, ally in progress of US. Its actions are not reckless. I mean, China is not doing any reckless action. China has concluded that India is firmly in the lap of US. There is a no point, or rather no return in sight. India has strongly placed along with the West. So China feels that there is no point in doing niceties with India, because India is firmly with the US. So there is no point in, so a strategic loss. I mean, some people said that this will actually lead to strategic loss for China, but China is already lost. India is already with the West. So there is no additional loss going to happen because India is already with the West. So China feels that India has strongly placed ourselves with the West, and there is no further loss because India is already with them. So then this next point, another point I would like, an eighth point I would like to add here is India, according to West, India can be a counterweight to China's rise. But Beijing is trying to say that Beijing is not going to be deterred by this kind of a perception that India is going to be a counterweight. So India as a counterweight to China. But China says they are not going to be deterred by this counterweight philosophy because China feels that, and not only the Chinese, the message not just for India, to the rest of the world also, surrounding the other countries, whether it is Vietnam, whether it is Southeast Asian countries, whether it is Philippines, or whether it is Taiwan. The message is, if you try to team up against China, China is not going to keep quiet. China will take its muscle power or use its hard power politics rather than China will use its soft power politics. China is no more interested in soft power politics. China will use its hard power politics against such countries. That is the message China is trying to give not only to India, to other surrounding countries who are keeping, who are thinking in similar lines, ganging up against the China. China is not going to tolerate this anymore. See, another point I would like to add here is, a ninth point I would like to add here is, the China feels that because of the the geopolitical situation right now, because of the economic downturn, the COVID spread, and most of the country, the Europe is trying to battle this COVID. US has almost surrendered, and they are not even fighting it properly. So they feel that there is more room when the US is down. The US leadership is in real trouble, and the President Trump has failed miserably in taking the leadership, showing the leadership to the world. They should have been taking a lead. When this pandemic has come out, the US should have been taking a lead and fighting against this corona pandemic in a big way. They should have, led the world. But US has miserably failed all of us. So the Chinese feel that there is greater room for geopolitical maneuvering. They can, and the US is stuck in this election. This is an election year also, and they don't want to do. So China feels that this is a time to take over and declare to the world that China has arrived. China is a global power. So they want to show to the world that they have arrived. And in fact, as I told you, Chinese tactics is offense is the best defense. China was on the back foot when the COVID spread was there, but now they are trying to tell the world that is why they are taking an offensive position everywhere. They are taking an offensive position in LAC. They are taking an offensive position in Hong Kong, with Taiwan, and with with US. So everywhere the Chinese position is that offense is the best defense, and that is why they are doing. So they have already realized that they have lost India to the West, and they are not going to do any niceties with India, and they are taking a hardline position. So that is why China is taking this kind of a position. Now I would like to discuss about, in a final analysis, what India should be doing. What can we do to counter this kind of a situation, or what should be our strategy? What all we can do? That is what I would like to discuss in the continuing discussion. I will be taking up that particular aspect. Coming to the final analysis on India-China standoff at line of actual control, a couple of points I would like to re-emphasize. The first thing I would like to talk here is, we are entering into a very decisive phase, or rather, it's a very a strategic dilemma or a strategic trap. What to do with China? Can we actually endanger our relationship with China further, or can we move more closer to US and further antagonize China? So should we do, what should be our the right distance with US as well as with China? We have to be that has to be a strategic decision. A lot of thinking has to go. So the first thing is, we can say, according to many experts, we are entering into a strategic trap. If you move closer to US, automatically we will lose China, and if we cannot, and we cannot trust China also beyond a point. The way the actions were done, the way they killed our soldiers, it is very clear that it's very difficult to trust them. So there is definitely going to be a trust deficit. So we can say there is some sort of a strategic trap according to many experts. Now, another big question mark is, should we embrace US, or a deep embrace of US should be there at this time, especially when the US power itself is declining. And first point is a strategic trap. Second is a deep embrace of US at this stage. Is this a good step, a good move? When the US is declining, US is getting increasingly isolated. President Trump in US is a big failure, and he is not talking about the global leadership. He cannot even lead his own country. He is not able to fight this pandemic in US. He has been a big disaster there, no doubt, according to most experts. And when we are trying to have a deep embrace of US, when US is in the declining stage. But compare this with Pakistan. When Pakistan was in the fold of the US, especially in the 1980s and early 90s, during the Cold War era, the US had a better control of the world. At that time, Pakistan was a close ally of US. But after that also, you can see, after right now in the last 20 years, what happened to Pakistan, that is also a lesson for India. So a deep embrace of US beyond a point, will it give strategic benefits in the future? Time only will tell. If you are looking at Pakistan and the experience of Pakistan, if you are considering, they could not gain much. I mean, today Pakistan is in deep trouble. It's also because the US has completely given up on Pakistan, or rather they gave up, and US is no longer considering Pakistan as a useful force. And that is so. Should we move closer to US is a big question mark. We have to be extremely careful about that. A third point I would like to add here is this conflict, the region in which we are conflicting, the conflict where it is taking place, that is the Eastern Ladakh region, or in the Aksai Chin region, the border, that is strategically very important for India. In fact, when we are talking about the border road which we have constructed, or even the Daulat, Beg, Oldie, this airfield, it is very close to Siachen. Now, the conflict has taken place along this road, which we have constructed from Leh to this Daulat Beg Oldie, more than 250 kilometer long road. And this is where the conflict, along that line of actual control, this has taken place. Strategically very important for our Siachen, especially considering the fact that on the western side of Siachen is Pakistan. Eastern side of Siachen right now is China, and you cannot, or India cannot afford to lose here. Any weakening of India here, or any weakening along the line of actual control, will definitely affect our control over Siachen also. Strategically, it is very important for India. Similarly, for China also, this is strategically very important, because just across the Siachen glacier is the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is going on, and its connectivity to Central Asia, all passing a few kilometers away from this conflict zone where we have had the conflict. So for both India and China, this is very, very important strategically. India, because of this tri-junction type where China and Pakistan are, that is where both the countries are coming closer, and Siachen Glacier is just across. So, for China, it is CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So this region is strategically very important. Both sides would not like to give up an inch at this stage in this particular region. So it is a strategically very important region. So third point I would like to add here is strategically very important for both. Strategically very important for both countries. Then a fourth point I would like to add, especially after the conflict. So after the June 15 conflict, in fact, there was an all-party conference in Delhi. Prime Minister addressed them. And in that all-party meeting, Prime Minister said, which is very interesting, he said that neither is anyone inside the Indian territory, nor any of our border posts captured. So that was a big climb down by China. In fact, this is in the postscript, when you look, this kind of a statement by Prime Minister Modi is a big climb down. I don't know whether he has spoken very consciously or he accidentally said this. Whatever it is, this kind of a statement, it is not a carefully worded statement. That's what I would like to say. His argument in front of the political parties, in front of the Indian opposition leaders, that neither is anyone inside the Indian territory nor any of our border was captured, it may be a bold statement made in front of our opposition leaders to hide the shortcomings which has happened. But this statement was taken very seriously by Chinese. In fact, Chinese immediately after that, they have said that the Prime Minister's clarification has clearly been it is used by China to justify their action along line of actual control. So China has welcomed the Prime Minister's statement, and they have said that it's a wonderful statement. This is what we expected. We are not the aggressor. That means indirectly they are telling India is the aggressor. So this Prime Minister's position immediately after this kind of a standoff and after losing 20 soldiers definitely is not going to help. In fact, China may be using this as a ploy, or it was a tool, or it is a indication from India to attack, or more border raids may be there, more land grabs will take place. So that is why I think India's climb down after the attack is not at all going to help. So India is under tremendous pressure, and that is why Prime Minister Modi has done this. But I don't think that is a wise move. That has we lost some strategic advantage because of that statement. That's what I feel. Another point I would like to emphasize here is this. Especially after the August 5th change of position of the Jammu and Kashmir, after making Jammu and Kashmir been divided into two parts and both of them made into union territories, we have unwittingly brought China and Pakistan more closer than ever before on the Kashmir question. We made China and Pakistan more closer than ever before. That this is how, when you do unilateral steps like this, when you take undemocratic steps, when you take decisions in a hurry, and you are not when you are taking decisions, especially such a sensitive issue, a historic issue of 70 years, we are trying to erase everything in one go, overnight, 24 hours, 48 hours. See, that is not the way to do. Unfortunately, our leadership still believes in this kind of actions, undemocratic steps. We should have been talking to people, we should have been talking to the opposition, we should have been having enough debate in the parliament, discussion in the parliament. Prime Minister should participate in that, then come up with some solution. Rather than doing everything, we unilaterally did it, and this kind of a unilateral step has definitely brought China and Pakistan more closer, which is not to not helping us. I mean, it is strategically, I will say, definitely a move which is not helping India. So we have moved both of them closer. And another point is, we should have been focusing more on somehow break the link between China and Pakistan. Our strategy should have been to weaken the China-Pakistan alliance by engaging China more in trade, in a multilateral regional discussion should have been there. The BRICS summit, or other RIC summit, or other in India, this China, South Africa, all these discussion, we could have been engaging China in various forums in Southeast Asia. So rather than weakening the China-Pakistan nexus, we have unwittingly helping China and Pakistan to come closer, which is definitely a strategic failure of India, or it's a strategic, I will say, we have not calculated that much. There is a failure in anticipation, I will say, in when we took the steps in Jammu and Kashmir. Another point is, after the August 5th, after the what you call abolition of 370, Pakistan has started saying that even Shimla agreement should be reworked. According to Pakistan, Shimla agreement is no more valid. Some of the experts in Pakistan are saying Shimla agreement is no more valid because, according to them, in the Shimla agreement we have clearly mentioned that pending the final settlement of all the problems between the two countries, neither side shall unilaterally alter the situation. In Shimla agreement, in fact, many in Pakistan argue that the Shimla agreement, this is the basis of our bilateral relationship between India and Pakistan, is no more valid. I mean, this is some of the experts in Pakistan, they are arguing this is not a healthy sign again for India. So this kind of unilateral action by August, on August 5th has brought China and Pakistan more closer, and we have to pay the price for they being much more closer. It is a matter of concern for us. And so now what we need to do is we need to have a national security strategy. In fact, I would like to emphasize here that we need to have a new national security strategy, which is completely decoupled from the compulsions of domestic politics. Our problem is we are trying to mix up things, such crucial things, only keeping in view of our domestic, political calculations. So we have to decouple this national security strategy from domestic political compulsion. Decouple from domestic political compulsions from electoral politics. We should decouple it. We just for winning a couple of states here and there, we should not be mixing up our foreign policy with these domestic interests. The electoral politics, to win an election, we should not be doing it. Unfortunately, according to many experts, we are actually mixing up this foreign policy decisions to win elections. See, changing the status of Ladakh, for example, and then creating a doubt in the minds of China, or re-emphasizing and shouting from the rooftop that we will take back Aksai Chin, when we ourselves know that we never ruled Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin is a historic, disputed territory. In fact, if you look at history also, Britishers never occupied and ruled Aksai Chin. And Kashmir claimed about that. Even after that claim, we hardly had any real control over Aksai Chin at any point of time. So it is definitely, and even the boundary line which we are talking right now, whether it is the Chinese position or the Indian position, both these were contested by each other. Even Britishers did not have any clarity on that. It is a continuation of the 18th century or 19th century and 20th century problem. But we suddenly started insisting that we will we lay our claim on Aksai Chin, we will reclaim it, this, that. So these kind of posturing for the domestic public, but China has taken it very seriously. So we should have been avoiding this. So we have to decouple this foreign policy objectives and foreign policy steps from the domestic political compulsions. And we have also to be, a neighborhood realism. We should have a clear-cut understanding of where we stand. Our relationship with our neighbors are not so good right now. We have to introspect and see why we are doing this, or why did we reach this kind of a situation. So there are some policy shortcomings. This is high time for India. Prime Minister Modi has 4 more years to go in his second term. And this is the time for him to rework and replan, re-strategize. So if you are not doing it, we will be losing whatever, he will be losing his political, such a huge mandate which he got. He should be using it for promoting India's interest rather than creating further fights. We are fighting with Pakistan, now we are fighting with China. Nepal is already, in a very hostile position. Sri Lanka, we are almost on the verge of losing Sri Lanka. Bangladesh is not happy. Afghanistan, we are in a losing position. So we need to understand our compulsions, and we should understand there should be a bit more realism we should be realistic in our policy in our neighborhood. We cannot be, making big statements and then losing out unnecessarily. So we need to decouple this national security strategy from domestic politics. And also, one more point in this context I would like to add, an 8th point I would like to add here is, then we should, moreover, at this kind of, we should stand up against China also. We should not be coming under the bullying tactic, because China has other intentions. So we have to stand up. So for that, we have to unite. There has to be unity within the country. We have to unite ourselves against China. So there should be more dialogue and discussion with the opposition. We should make sure that there are no divisive forces within the country. The divisive agenda like Citizenship Amendment Act, this National Population Register, these kind of things should be avoided. And we should be single-mindedly focusing on bringing all sections of the society together. And the state election should not be the guiding factor for the government to decide on various policies. So, for example, the lockdown of the this COVID-19 and the kind of economic hardship with which many poor people are going through, we should be working and improving their situation rather than trying to divide them at any point of time. There has to be that's what I'm saying. We have to stand up against China, Chinese bullying, unitedly with all political parties. The ruling party should, it is the responsibility of the ruling party to take the opposition along. Opposition will raise questions. Rather than countering their question by asking another question, they should be answering their questions. The ruling party should answer the questions, give the right picture, come out with the correct picture, tell the people what is happening, and unite the society rather than divide the society. So it is the responsibility of the ruling party, it is the responsibility of Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah to unite the people, and this is a time for unity. It is not the time to prove a point here and there. And we have to have answers. The government should explain more. Government should give more answers. If opposition is raising a question, rather than questioning why are you asking this question, you should answer the questions. So unfortunately, that is not happening right now. That is not a healthy sign of that is not a healthy sign of a good democracy. So we need answers to the questions rather than counter questions. So there should be, India should stand up against the Chinese bullying unitedly. For that, the ruling party will have to take more steps. Right now, whatever steps are taken, I feel it is not sufficient. And moreover, India should once again go back to our Gujarat doctrine. And India should use our soft power, especially in our neighborhood. We should get back. We should ensure that Nepal is back on our side, back with us. Sri Lanka should be with us. Afghanistan, we should improve, or we should increase our engagement in Afghanistan to ensure that we are winning back in Afghanistan. So we need to we should use our soft power. We should use our Gujarat doctrine in our neighborhood, and we should try to increase our engagement with all the global powers and all possible countries, such a way that we are on the right side of all these countries. So then we will be able to convince the world that what China is doing. So we need to use our soft power. We need to use our Gujarat doctrine such a way that the Chinese designs are not, they are not finding, or rather they should not get any fruit of their design, and they should be defeated in this kind of a strategy. And most importantly, we should realize that there are no quick fix solutions. Just by boycotting some Chinese goods and all, it is not going to help. No quick fix solution. We have to strengthen our economy. We have to strengthen our healthcare system. We have to strengthen our education system. We have to ensure that people are united. There should not be division within the country on religious lines, on caste lines. We should avoid all these things. Unfortunately, many a times the political leadership is more busy dividing people rather than uniting people. Then when we are divided, these kind of external forces will take advantage of it. China feels India is on a weak wicket. Pakistan knows that we are weak. So their combined strength, the China-Pakistan nexus can be counterproductive for India. It can be a big problem for India. So this is a time for Prime Minister Modi to show political leadership.